Hey, and welcome to After Hours here at Linda's Electric Quilters. We are, where was the whoop whoop?
Oh, I forgot.
You
Whoop,
always
whoop.
have, there we go. We are super excited to be joining you this evening as we talk about the TOWA tension gauge.
Yes, we've done this video before, just like a quick one. We want to go a little bit more in depth. We get lots of questions on it. We're like, why not do it as an After Hours?
Yeah, why not? Definitely. And it pairs well with the TOWA bobbin case, which we did talk about a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
It all starts to blend together with as many as we do. But as always, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel. So it's going to be right down at that bottom right-hand corner. After you click on that subscribe button, make sure you click on the little bell that shows up so you can get notified whenever we post new videos, go live on After Hours, or go live on Good Morning LEQ.
Which we're having lots of fun on Good Morning LEQ.
Good Morning LEQ is fun.
So if you haven't watched it yet, you should definitely tune in, watch some of the old episodes, and definitely join us. We love to talk back and forth with you. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into them and show them the different boxes.
So
well, guess what?
They look the exact same. So on the left-hand side, Diana has the M size gauge, and I have the L size gauge. And the only differences on these boxes are these little numbers right here. So it says TM1. That's going to be an L size gauge. And then you have TM3, which is going to be an M size gauge.
Correct.
So if you're out at a quilt show, if you're at your local quilt shop and you're looking at these, make sure you turn it to the side and check that number to verify which machine is, or which gauge is going to work for your bobbin for your machine. And while we're talking about bobbins, we always get this question too, so we thought we'd throw it in real quick. If you're looking at what size bobbin you have, either M or L, if you grab your bobbin and you grab some coins, an M size bobbin is a little larger than a traditional quarter, and an L size bobbin is going to be the same size as a nickel. Okay, so that kind of helps you when you're trying to determine whether you need different bobbins, bobbin cases, gauges, pre-wound bobbins. We always like for you to know which difference is in your bobbins, because some long arm machines use an L and some long arm machines use an M.
Yeah, and most of the domestic machines will use an L. So if you still don't know, go look at your sewing machine and compare that to your long arm or your mid arm that you're using, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we're going to take those out.
So move that off to the side. So let's grab a gauge out of its box. We're going to be using the TM3, which is the M size gauge. That's the gauge that we use most often. And it's got a couple of different wheels here. One thing to note about these wheels is that they are pressed on. There's a fancy word for it. Swage, I believe, is the fancy word for it. But they are pressed on and they are made out of plastic.
Yeah.
So if you've had this gauge for about 4 or 5 years and you're tuning in, you might want to look at possibly getting a new one, because you can't get these wheels replaced and they might start throwing some weird numbers at you.
Exactly,
So
and we're going to show you a little tip on how you can tell if you need a new gauge.
Definitely.
So why don't we just show that first after you show, go ahead and show what it does first.
So you have a bunch of different numbers here, and that's going to tell you what your tension gauging, bobbin is gauging at. And a lot of your stitch quality comes from your bobbin. So this is where this tension gauge gives you a good roundabout, good quality check, and a good range for you to fall into to get a good stitch on your machine.
Yeah, and most ranges on most machines, on most threads, are going to be between like 190 and 220. As long as you kind of gauge within that, you know, you can find your sweet spot for your machine.
Right.
That usually is where you would do it with any threads.
Right. And so, you know, some users, if you have this machine, this gauge, some users, if they put their bobbin in there, it might end up at 175, and that's giving them the perfect stitch that they want. So you're going to have to gauge it to what you normally use, but this is a great way to get you in that range if you have never started using that before.
Okay, let's go ahead and click a bobbin in. Let's show, the first thing you want to do is obviously make sure your bobbin is full. Yep,
so you want to have a nice bobbin there. It's good if you lay the gauge flat on a table. It kind of gives you a more consistent reading. And it always helps to pair your gauge with the TOWA bobbin case that we've talked about.
Or if you don't use a TOWA bobbin case, it's okay. It'll gauge any M size case.
Yeah, M or L, depending on which gauge you have.
Yeah.
So we're going to place this in. It's going to make that same click noise that it does when it goes in your machine. And you're going to take your thread and you're going to go underneath this first wheel. You're going to go over the wheel up top. And this is so hard to do one-handed. There we go. And then you're going to come through this little arm right here and pull it to the left, and that's gauging right now at about 350. Yeah. Wow. So a little bit of a movement needs to be done here on this one.
Exactly.
So I'm going to let loose of this thread, and I'm going to turn this gauge to the side where I have my larger screw on my bobbin case. Get you a better look at that right there. And I can grab my screwdriver, and that's a very tight reading. So I'm going to take my screwdriver, put it on that larger screw, and loosen this. And a little turn goes a long way on this one. So let's pull it again. Now we're about 250, 260.
Yeah, loosen a little bit more.
A little bit more on that one. But this helps you really get right there in that range that you're looking for.
Yeah.
About 240. I could go a hair looser.
And just remember, if you go too loose or too tight, it's a quick, easy adjustment right there.
There we go, about 220. Oh, there we go. Just like that. And that's giving me a nice, consistent reading. Even when I lay it flat here on the table, giving me a nice, consistent reading.
And that's important. We want that nice, consistent reading, right?
Yeah.
And so if we don't get that nice, consistent reading, then we know that we need to make some adjustments somewhere.
Right. It could have something to do with your tension gauge itself. It could have something to do with the bobbin or the bobbin case.
Okay, so let's show like how you can tell if it's your gauge first.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this thread out of here, and Darren, our technician, gave us this amazing tip when using this. If you grab a Sharpie or any type of permanent marker, and you make 2 dots on your gauge.
There you go.
Right here on this wheel, and then come down to the wheel on the bottom and do the same thing.
Now make sure they're is it parallel or perpendicular?
They're across from each
Across
other.
from each
Let's
other?
just go with that.
Let's use a big word, man.
Let's just go with that. And so now I go underneath, parallel or perpendicular. I was trying to be professional. Underneath, over, and through here, you can see that those wheels are turning nicely because those dots are moving at a consistent pace.
Exactly. So why that's really good is because it's possible if you've been using it for 4 or 5 years, one of those aren't moving consistently.
Could be gunked up with something.
And they really can't be adjusted or cleaned at that point.
Right.
So they could be giving you false readings and you could be having issues and you're like, but my gauge is reading just fine.
Right.
This is a way, if you have an older gauge, to check, hey, it is reading just fine. Or, you know what? Maybe it is a little gunked up. Maybe it's time to get a new one at that point.
Maybe time to get a new one there.
Okay, so what's another thing to check?
So if your wheels are turning just fine, but you're getting a reading that's doing something like that, okay, that's telling you that you are having an issue with your bobbin case.
Okay.
Or your bobbin itself. A lot of people don't know you can have a bad bobbin.
Yeah.
If you've dropped it, that can bend it, take it out of the circular form that's supposed to be in.
Or if you're winding it and you're winding them way too tight each time with your bobbin winder.
So you can definitely have that an issue as well. So you would want to open it up and check and look at the health of your bobbin case.
Yeah, the thing you want to look at is you want to look at to make sure that your tension spring is in there correctly, which we know this one is because it gauged good. But make sure that the tension spring is in there correctly. This is the TOWA, and you have the other one. Let's show the generic one.
So this is the Seiko.
And then you want to make sure, again, that it's in there correctly. And the biggest places to check are making sure that you didn't bend the wing when you put a new one in. Because even if it's a brand new spring and you bent the wing,
forcing it in there when you're changing it,
it will cause an issue.
Yeah.
You also want to make sure it has a little kickback there.
Definitely.
That just tells you that there's not a lot of gunk underneath there. If it's not giving you a kickback, you want to go in there and make sure you get all that cleaned out. And we have really good tweezers that clean those out.
So Diana, why don't you show them those tweezers that you're talking about here? I'll let you have this bobbin case. So why don't you show them about the tweezers and the cleaning on that?
Yep. So I have some tweezers right here, the fine point ones that we showed you how to use, the Femori ones that we sell. You know, you can pop out that spring just like that, and you can go in here and use that fine tip to clean out all those corners where there could be lots of gunk. This one's pretty clean, but a lot of times you'll have lots of gunk in there, right? So that's a good time to do that. Yeah. Another place that you want to check is underneath the arm. And it's real important to check underneath the arm. You could be getting a false tension, and the whole time it's just because there's fibers underneath there.
Some lint gets underneath that and just ruins what you're doing.
So you can use like a paintbrush, just get those little under the bristles. It'll actually go through there, pop that out, clean that out, and then you're good to go. Put your backlash spring back in. And that should do it. Now, for some reason, if that doesn't, you put it in and it's still having an issue. Yeah. Put a bobbin in, and then you just want to see if it'll go like that. And we showed this in the bobbin case video, but it's really quick to know. Yeah. If it's not spinning. It's
not spinning nice and free.
Nice and free. Then your bobbin case is out of whack, and just go ahead and put a new bobbin case in.
Just get a new bobbin case and be done with it,
Yep. So that's kind of some different things that you would check to make sure that if you needed to put a new bobbin case, adjust tension, things like that, right?
Yeah, because the bobbin health is everything. Bobbin case health, tension health is everything on that one. So one last time real quick on this one, the threading of it. We'll pop this in. You're going to go underneath the first wheel, over the second wheel, through the arm, and pull it over to the side there. You want to see those wheels turning. You want that red arm to be at that nice consistent number, probably about that 190, 220 between there, whatever works better for you. And then once you've got it set that way, then you can use the little thread cutter here on the side to cut your thread. Take this out and plop it into your machine.
That was a really quick, easy video to show you how to use the TOWA tension gauge, right?
I absolutely love one of these. I have one at my home for my machine. I think everybody should have one, even if you've been doing it for a long time. Yeah. That little pull of the bobbin kit, like where you're holding the thread and you're pulling it up, I can give you a visual of that.
There you go.
This only goes so far because every thread is becoming so different these days.
Well, it takes the guesswork out, right?
It takes all the guesswork out, especially when you're quilting at midnight. We're tired. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You do it too. This it might not feel like it did at 6 hours earlier because you're ready to be done.
Exactly. So it's definitely a good way to put that in, give it a test. Gives you what, the 3 things, right?
Those 3 things. What are the 3 things that this is going to help us out with?
It is going to help us, number 1, get the correct tension.
Yes.
The tension range.
Yes, tension range.
Every machine is just a little bit different. So look at your manufacturer for that. It's also going to tell you if your tension gauge is having issues by the dots that we were talking about.
Right.
How we showed you how to check your quality of the dots, the gauge, because they tend to get a little older.
It could be the gauge, being older because the wheels aren't moving. The bobbin case is not working anymore.
Exactly.
The bobbin's out of whack. It tells you so much about why that tension on your quilt is not looking the way you actually want it to.
Which brings us to number 3.
Number 3.
Quality check.
Quality.
To be able to check your quality of your bobbin case so that way you have awesome stitching.
Yes.
All right, I think we did it.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us for that quick video tonight on After Hours about the TOWA tension gauge. Swing over to our website, www.longarmsupplies.net, where you can find the TM1, which is for the L size bobbins, and the TM3, which is for the M size bobbins.
Exactly.
Other than that, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow on Good Morning LEQ. Bye.
Bye.